It was a bright, sunny afternoon, the kind of day when the world seems calm and cheerful, yet full of surprises waiting to happen. The mall was buzzing with life, families carrying shopping bags, teenagers laughing as they strolled past stores, and the distant hum of music from the food court mixing with the chatter of excited voices. Children ran around in colorful clothes, clutching ice creams and toys, while parents tried to keep up, juggling bags and phone calls. The air smelled faintly of popcorn and fresh pastries, mingling with the aroma of coffee from the nearby cafe. People moved in all directions, some in a hurry, others strolling leisurely, completely unaware that something unusual was about to unfold in the middle of their ordinary day. In the midst of this everyday chaos, a notorious local bully was making his way through the crowd. He had a reputation that everyone in the area knew well. Quick to anger, sharp-tongued, and delighting in embarrassing anyone he saw as weaker or out of place, he thrived on attention. Today, he was in one of his moods, scanning the crowd for someone he could humiliate, someone he could mock and show off his so-called power. His eyes darted back and forth, looking for an easy target. He wore a confident smirk, thinking that his next prank would bring him the laughter and admiration he craved from his friends. Nearby, in stark contrast to the bully's restless energy, stood a calm, composed man. He looked unassuming at first glance, a casual t-shirt, jeans, and sunglasses, but there was something about the way he carried himself that made him stand out. His posture was perfect, his movements measured and deliberate. People didn't notice it immediately, but there was an air of quiet authority around him, the kind that made others instinctively respect his space. He was enjoying a rare day off, savoring a milkshake in peace. He sipped it slowly, taking in the surroundings, blending in with the crowd yet carrying an invisible aura of strength. Few could guess his true identity. He was a highly trained Navy SEAL, someone who had faced dangers and challenges most people couldn't even imagine. Today, he was just another person in the crowd, yet he radiated a discipline and awareness that made him impossible to ignore, even unknowingly. As the bully spotted him, a mischievous idea began to form. The contrast between them was striking. The bully, loud and brash, thrived on chaos and attention. The Navy SEAL, calm and self-possessed, projected an energy that was quiet but powerful. It was the perfect opportunity, in the bully's mind, to make someone who seemed unassuming into the center of ridicule. He imagined the laughter that would follow, the shocked faces of onlookers, and the sense of satisfaction that would come from making someone feel embarrassed. With the mall packed with people, it seemed like a perfect stage for his next prank. But life has a way of surprising even those who think they're in control. The SEAL, enjoying his milkshake, had no idea of the impending chaos. He wasn't alert in a way that screamed danger to everyone around him. Instead, his calmness was natural. His eyes scanned the crowd casually, noticing small details, but he was focused on enjoying a quiet moment, a rare treasure for someone used to high-stress, high-stakes situations. There was an invisible boundary around him, a sense of presence that people often felt without being able to describe it. As the bully approached, plotting his mischief, the scene was set for a clash of personalities. On one side, a man who relied on intimidation, loud gestures, and quick humor to assert dominance. On the other, a man who had been trained to stay calm under pressure, to assess situations quickly, and to act decisively when necessary. The mall, full of unsuspecting shoppers, would become the backdrop for an encounter neither of them, or the onlookers, would ever forget. What made this moment so interesting wasn't just the tension between the two men, it was the ordinary setting that made it relatable to everyone. A simple mall, an everyday outing, suddenly became a stage for an extraordinary story. The aroma of food, the laughter of children, the chatter of friends, all these mundane details contrasted sharply with the tension that was about to build. Life, it seemed, had a way of turning the ordinary into something unforgettable, and nobody could have predicted that a simple milkshake would be at the center of what was about to happen. And so, in the midst of laughter, music, and the hum of a busy afternoon, a silent storm was brewing. The bully, full of confidence and ego, had no idea that this small act would lead to a lesson he would never forget. Meanwhile, the Navy SEAL, calm and composed, continued to enjoy his day, unaware that his presence alone would soon command the attention and respect of everyone around him. The scene was set, and what seemed like an ordinary day was about to turn into an unforgettable story. The bully had been scanning the crowd for some time, moving with exaggerated swagger as if the mall were his personal stage. His eyes flicked from group to group, looking for the perfect target, someone who seemed slightly out of place, timid, or simply unaware of his presence. The louder he was, the more he drew attention to himself, cracking jokes that were meant to humiliate, smirking at people as he passed. To him, life was a game, and every person in his path was either an obstacle or an audience. But today, as his gaze settled on a man quietly enjoying a milkshake, something about him piqued the bully's curiosity. The man seemed ordinary at first glance, casually holding his drink and surveying the mall with an air of calm confidence. But to the bully, he was just the perfect new challenge. A target who appeared unassuming, maybe even vulnerable, a canvas for the embarrassment he planned to paint. The bully's grin widened. He imagined the scene, the laughter, the gasps of bystanders, and the sense of superiority he would feel as he pulled off another public stunt. For him, nothing was more thrilling than making someone flinch or lose composure in front of strangers. He began his approach slowly, pretending to walk past as if by accident, but each step was calculated. His eyes never left the man, and his smirk never faltered. He was the kind of person who thrived on anticipation, building the tension until the moment of impact. In his mind, the milkshake was the perfect weapon, a harmless prop that would humiliate without consequence, a liquid symbol of his power over others. He watched as the man took a slow sip, tilting the straw and savoring the creamy treat, completely unaware of the danger approaching. The bully's friends, a small group trailing behind him, whispered and giggled, egging him on. They knew him well and had learned that his pride could be easily inflated with applause or laughter. Encouraged, he positioned himself strategically, measuring the distance, timing his move to perfection. Every step he took was deliberate, his heart beating with excitement at the thought of dominating this unsuspecting stranger. Then came the moment he had been waiting for. With a quick, almost theatrical motion, he grabbed the milkshake, tilting it toward the man's chest with a flourish. Time seemed to slow as the creamy liquid left the cup, suspended in the air like a small cloud of impending chaos. The bully's grin was wide, triumphant. He imagined the gasps of horror, the shocked expressions, the instant viral-worthy humiliation that would cement his reputation as untouchable in the local scene. In his mind, victory was already his. But even as he executed his plan, a subtle unease began to creep in. There was something about the man's stance, the calmness in his posture, the way he didn't flinch or even turn in surprise immediately. It was as if he sensed the bully's intentions before they even fully unfolded. The air between them seemed to thicken, charged with an unspoken energy that neither the bully nor the onlookers could explain. For a brief second, the bully hesitated, a split-second pause that would change everything. The milkshake landed. But instead of the anticipated scream or jump back, the man remained composed, his eyes locking onto the bully with a sharp, calculating gaze. The crowd, sensing that something unusual was happening, began to quiet down. Whispers replaced laughter, and the energy shifted. The bully, who had expected instant domination, felt a strange chill run down his spine. The thrill of the prank was replaced with uncertainty. The power he thought he held in his hands was suddenly slipping, replaced by the weight of the man's calm presence. And so, what had started as a simple act of mischief became a moment of tension, charged with anticipation and curiosity. The bully, confident and loud moments ago, now felt exposed in a way he had never experienced before. The mall, once just a backdrop for his antics, had transformed into a stage for something far bigger than a prank. It was a confrontation between raw arrogance and quiet authority. The milkshake, meant to humiliate, now symbolized a turning point, a catalyst for a lesson that was about to unfold in real time, right before the eyes of every onlooker. The moment the milkshake splashed was supposed to be the bully's triumph, a perfect, embarrassing strike that would make him the center of attention. But almost immediately, he realized something was very wrong. The man standing before him didn't react the way anyone would expect. There was no scream, no frantic wiping of the sticky mess, no stumble backward in shock. Instead, he remained perfectly still, his posture upright, his calm gaze fixed on the bully with an intensity that made the air feel heavier. In that instant, the bully understood, he had chosen the wrong target. It wasn't just a feeling. It was a gut instinct that hit him like a punch. The man wasn't flustered, and he certainly wasn't intimidated by a childish prank. There was a quiet power radiating from him, subtle but undeniable, a presence that filled the space around him. The kind of presence that made people stand up a little straighter, step back without thinking, and reconsider the consequences of their actions. The bully's grin faltered. Confidence that had been growing since he spotted his supposed victim now wavered, replaced by a creeping unease. He had expected fear or surprise. Instead, he faced control, composure, and an unmistakable authority that he couldn't intimidate. Around them, the crowd began to notice the shift in energy. A few gasps escaped from bystanders, and whispers started to ripple through the food court. People instinctively sensed the tension, the unusual dynamic between two seemingly ordinary men. The bully's friends froze, unsure whether to laugh or run, sensing that the situation had moved far beyond their friend's usual antics. Even casual shoppers paused, watching the scene unfold, their attention drawn to the stark contrast between the bully's chaotic energy and the calm, measured demeanor of the man who had just been doused with milkshake. The bully, trying to mask his growing anxiety, forced a laugh, hoping to recover some of his lost bravado. "Come on, man. It's just a milkshake," he shouted, waving his hands as if the gesture alone could dismiss the tension. But the man didn't respond immediately. He simply lowered the straw from his mouth, wiped a small drip of milkshake from his arm with deliberate care, and took a deep breath. His movements were slow and controlled, deliberate yet casual, like a predator assessing a threat before deciding how to act. In that moment, the bully realized that he had underestimated the situation entirely. He had assumed that anyone standing quietly in a crowd was an easy target. He had assumed that a public prank would automatically bring laughter and admiration. But this man, calm yet commanding, exuded a presence that defied assumptions. The bully's plan, which had seemed foolproof in his mind, was crumbling with each passing second. Panic began to mix with embarrassment, and for the first time, he felt genuinely small in front of another human being. And then came the first words. The man's voice was low but firm, cutting through the murmurs of the crowd like a knife. "Do you think this is funny?" he asked, not angrily, but with a tone that made the question heavier than a shouting match ever could. The bully's heart skipped a beat. It wasn't just the words, it was the way they were delivered. The calmness, the certainty, the weight of experience behind that simple question, it demanded attention, and more than that, it demanded respect. The bully stammered, searching for a retort, for a joke, for anything that could save him from humiliation. But nothing came. Words, which had always been his weapon, failed him. He had assumed that arrogance and noise could dominate any space, but here, silence and control reigned supreme. The realization hit him fully. He had not just spilled a milkshake on someone, he had provoked a man who was trained to handle far more dangerous situations than a messy beverage. The mall, full of ordinary people, had unknowingly become the stage for a confrontation that was about to teach a powerful lesson. The bully, who had walked in thinking himself untouchable, now stood frozen, staring at the calm authority before him. Every instinct screamed that this was no longer a game, and that one small misjudgment could cost him more than just pride. He had made a mistake, and the consequences, though not yet physical, were already starting to unfold in the tension that filled the air. The wrong choice had been made, and the bully was about to learn that not every target is weak, and not every victim is defenseless. In that moment, the milkshake wasn't just a prank, it was a symbol of overconfidence, of miscalculation, and of a lesson in humility that the bully would remember for the rest of his life. For a brief moment, the mall seemed to hold its breath. The air, once filled with laughter, chatter, and the hum of everyday life, now vibrated with tension. Every shopper who had paused to watch the milkshake incident felt it, even if they couldn't explain why. Something in the atmosphere had shifted. The bully, who had been brimming with confidence just seconds ago, was frozen in place, staring at the man he had just drenched. His smirk had vanished, replaced by a flicker of fear and uncertainty. The Navy SEAL didn't rush, didn't yell, and didn't make a dramatic scene. That wasn't his style, and it wasn't necessary. Instead, he took a slow, deliberate breath, letting the moment stretch out just enough to make the bully feel the weight of what he had done. His eyes, calm but piercing, locked onto the bully's gaze. They didn't just see the man, they assessed him, calculating the situation with an efficiency honed over years of intense training. Every muscle, every micro-expression, every twitch of the bully's body was noted in an instant. The calm precision of his stare was more intimidating than any loud confrontation could have been. Onlookers instinctively stepped back, giving the two men more space without thinking about it. They felt the presence of someone extraordinary, someone who radiated authority without raising his voice. Parents grabbed their children a little closer, teenagers paused mid-laugh, sensing that this wasn't an ordinary mall altercation. Even the bully's friends began to shift nervously, realizing that the situation was no longer under control. The power dynamic had flipped in an instant, and it was obvious to everyone that the bully had miscalculated badly. Then came the subtle, yet powerful, first move. The Navy SEAL raised a hand, not in aggression, but as a signal, as if to pause the chaos. It was a simple gesture, but it carried immense authority. In that instant, the bully's confidence wavered further. He had expected resistance, fear, maybe anger, but not this composed control. The SEAL's entire presence conveyed a message far stronger than words: I am aware. I am capable. And I will handle this my way. The crowd's whispers grew, a low murmur of amazement and curiosity. Some gasped, some exchanged shocked glances, and a few quietly recorded the scene on their phones. No one could predict what would happen next. The tension was palpable, stretching every second into what felt like an eternity. The bully fidgeted, his mind racing to think of an excuse, a joke, a way out, but the calm authority in front of him made every word feel useless, every move feel clumsy. What made the Navy SEAL's reaction so effective wasn't aggression. It wasn't yelling, it wasn't physical intimidation, and it certainly wasn't revenge. It was control. Pure, disciplined, unshakable control. Every inch of his body, every subtle movement, and every glance conveyed mastery over the situation. It was the kind of presence that commanded attention, respect, and a sudden awareness of one's own vulnerability. The bully, who had thrived on making others feel powerless, suddenly felt small. His usual tactics, mockery, bravado, and intimidation, were rendered useless in the face of someone who exuded quiet strength. Then, almost imperceptibly, the Navy SEAL's eyes scanned the surroundings. He noted the reactions of the people nearby, ensuring that no one else would be endangered by the unfolding situation. His awareness wasn't just about the bully, it encompassed the entire environment. The calm, calculated way he processed every detail in a split second reminded onlookers that they were witnessing something far beyond an ordinary mall prank. Finally, the Navy SEAL spoke, but his words were measured, slow, and deliberate. You need to think before you act, he said, not with anger, but with a firm, commanding tone that left no room for argument. The bully's heart skipped a beat. He had expected shouting, sarcasm, or perhaps even physical retaliation, but this measured response, paired with the piercing calm of the SEAL, made him realize the gravity of his mistake. In those moments, the dynamic was crystal clear. The bully had acted on impulse, driven by arrogance and a desire to entertain himself at someone else's expense. The Navy SEAL responded with discipline, awareness, and authority, the very traits that made him a trained soldier capable of handling extreme situations with ease. The contrast was stark, undeniable, and unforgettable. The mall, which had been a backdrop for ordinary life just minutes before, now felt like a stage for a lesson in humility, control, and respect. Every person who witnessed the interaction sensed that this was more than a prank gone wrong, it was a demonstration of what happens when raw arrogance meets true discipline. And in that tension-filled moment, the bully finally understood, he had provoked the wrong person, and this was only the beginning of a lesson he would never forget. The mall had fallen into a tense silence. Even the distant hum of background music and the chatter of shoppers seemed to fade away, replaced by an almost tangible anticipation. The bully, who had approached with overconfidence and a smirk, now felt the weight of every eye on him. The man he had tried to embarrass, the one he thought would flinch or stammer, stood before him with unshakable composure, his calm demeanor radiating an authority that seemed to silence the entire food court. The confrontation began not with anger, but with presence. The Navy SEAL's posture was impeccable, his gaze steady and direct. There was no rush, no impulsive reaction, only measured control. He had dealt with far more dangerous situations than a spilled milkshake, and it showed in every movement he made. Every eye in the crowd seemed drawn to him, as if he were the center of a force they couldn't resist. The bully's confidence wavered as he realized that intimidation wasn't universal. Not everyone reacted the way he expected. "Do you think this is funny?" the SEAL asked, his voice calm yet firm, carrying a weight that made the bully flinch slightly. It wasn't loud or threatening, but it commanded attention. The bully tried to laugh it off, trying to regain control of the moment, but his words faltered. The question, simple as it was, carried an unspoken challenge: recognize your mistake, or face the consequences. The SEAL stepped slightly closer, not aggressively, but with measured intention. His eyes scanned the bully's stance, the twitch of his hands, the way he shifted his weight, every micro-movement analyzed. In that instant it was clear to the bully that this man was not ordinary. This was someone who had been trained to stay calm in life-or-death situations, someone who assessed threats instantly and responded decisively. The bully's smirk disappeared completely, replaced by unease, uncertainty, and a growing sense of vulnerability. The surrounding crowd leaned in subtly, sensing the rising tension. Parents whispered to their children to watch quietly, teenagers paused mid-step, and even the bully's friends took a cautious step back. The balance of power had shifted completely. The bully had come here thinking he was untouchable, that his loudness and arrogance could dominate anyone. Now, standing face to face with a man who radiated discipline and authority, he realized how wrong he had been. The SEAL spoke again, his tone calm but firm: "You have a choice here. You can act like an adult and take responsibility, or you can continue acting like a child and learn the hard way." The words were not threatening, but they carried undeniable authority. Every syllable reinforced the SEAL's control over the situation. The bully stammered, searching for an escape, a joke, something to regain the upper hand, but he found nothing. His usual tactics of mockery, sarcasm, and bluster were useless in the face of composure and quiet strength. Then came the subtle gestures that revealed the SEAL's mastery. He didn't raise his voice, didn't move aggressively, yet his presence alone was enough to make the bully shrink slightly in his shoes. The SEAL adjusted his posture, taking a step forward, not to intimidate physically, but to assert dominance in a way that didn't require force. It was the kind of movement that communicates control without aggression, the silent authority of someone who knows exactly what they are capable of. The bully's friends, now realizing the situation was beyond their control, murmured nervously among themselves. They had always seen him as the leader, the one who instilled fear or commanded attention with jokes and pranks, but here, they saw him falter. For the first time, he was powerless in the face of someone who didn't react impulsively, someone who didn't need to raise a hand to dominate. Around them, the shoppers continued to watch in awe. Whispers filled the air as they realized they were witnessing more than a simple prank gone wrong. They were witnessing a confrontation between arrogance and discipline, chaos and control, impulsiveness and training. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. One man thrived on attention and domination, the other radiated silent authority that made the world around him pause. Finally, the bully lowered his gaze, realizing the depth of his mistake. The SEAL's words, combined with his calm presence, had stripped away his bravado. He had tried to humiliate, to assert dominance, but now he faced a man who needed no theatrics to command respect. The lesson was clear: not every target is weak, and not every challenge is worth picking. The confrontation wasn't over with a single action, it had become a turning point, a public moment where arrogance met true discipline and learned an unforgettable lesson. The Navy SEAL remained calm, his control absolute. He had not raised a hand, shouted, or lashed out. Yet in that measured presence, in that simple but firm confrontation, he had turned the tables completely. The bully's antics, intended to embarrass, had backfired spectacularly. And as the crowd watched, silent yet captivated, the truth became clear to everyone present: true strength lies not in aggression or noise, but in calmness, awareness, and authority that needs no display of force. The crowd that had gathered around the scene could hardly believe what they were witnessing. What began as an ordinary mall prank, a spilled milkshake, a bully's smug grin, had transformed into something extraordinary. Shoppers paused mid-step, frozen by the energy radiating from the man at the center of the confrontation. It wasn't just the bully who felt the weight of the moment, the onlookers did too. There was an almost magnetic pull toward the Navy SEAL, a quiet authority that demanded attention and respect without a single raised voice or threatening gesture. Parents instinctively pulled their children closer, not out of fear, but to give them a better view of the unfolding lesson. They whispered explanations to the kids in hushed tones, talking about respect, control, and the importance of handling conflict wisely. Teenagers who had been giggling and recording TikTok videos suddenly lowered their phones, realizing that this was no ordinary prank. The gravity of the moment was palpable, and everyone felt it, even those who had just been passing by, intending to grab a coffee or a snack. Some shoppers exchanged glances, silently communicating their awe. "Did you see that?" one whispered. He didn't even yell, but the bully looked scared. Nods and murmurs of agreement passed between strangers. In the brief moments of quiet observation, the crowd began to internalize a subtle but powerful lesson: courage and control were far more commanding than noise and arrogance. Everyone could see it, even if they didn't fully understand why. The bully, once the center of attention, now seemed diminished in stature. His friends shifted nervously, realizing that their leader had been outmatched without a single punch or threat. It was almost poetic in its simplicity: the bully's usual tools of humiliation, sarcasm, loudness, and intimidation, were completely ineffective against someone who exuded calm, calculated confidence. Watching this, the crowd couldn't help but feel a mix of satisfaction and admiration for the Navy SEAL. He had turned an embarrassing situation into a teaching moment, demonstrating a mastery of self-control that most people could only aspire to. Elderly shoppers who had seen countless conflicts in their lives commented quietly among themselves. "He doesn't even need to fight," one said. "Just the way he stands, you can tell he's not someone to mess with." Children, meanwhile, were fascinated by the drama unfolding in front of them, eyes wide as they processed the unusual display of authority. There was no screaming, no chaos, just a palpable aura that commanded respect and attention. Some bystanders even pulled out their phones, but not to make jokes or memes. They recorded the moment as evidence of something rare and profound: a confrontation handled with intelligence, calm, and presence. A few whispered that they had never seen someone handle a bully like this in real life. Others compared it to what they had seen in movies or viral clips online, yet they knew this was different. This was raw, real, and unfiltered, an authentic demonstration of the impact of discipline over impulsiveness. Even casual passers-by, who had stumbled upon the scene by accident, stopped and watched in silence. The mall, once bustling with ordinary activity, had become a stage for a real-life lesson. Every movement, every word, every pause of the Navy SEAL conveyed the unspoken truth: true strength lies in control, awareness, and measured action. The bully had acted without thinking, driven by ego and a desire for attention, while the SEAL responded with patience and calm precision. The crowd saw the stark contrast, and it left an impression that would linger far longer than the mess of the milkshake. The whispers grew into quiet admiration, subtle nods exchanged between strangers. Some mentally compared their own reactions in tense situations, wondering how they would respond if confronted by someone who handled conflict so flawlessly. Others reflected on the fleeting nature of arrogance and how quickly overconfidence could turn into embarrassment when faced with someone truly disciplined. By the time the confrontation was winding down, the crowd had collectively absorbed a powerful lesson without a single person being hurt. They had witnessed the transformation of a simple, messy prank into a live demonstration of authority, respect, and humility. In a matter of minutes, the mall became a classroom, and everyone present walked away with more than they had expected, a vivid reminder that confidence without discipline is fragile, and control paired with awareness is a force that cannot be underestimated. The moment of confrontation had passed, yet the tension in the air lingered, almost like a thick fog that refused to dissipate. The mall slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but something intangible had shifted. The crowd, though resuming their shopping and casual chatter, still cast occasional glances toward the center of the commotion. They had witnessed something unusual, something powerful, a real-life demonstration of restraint, authority, and discipline that few could forget. The bully, once brimming with arrogance and mischief, now stood frozen, his pride shattered. The realization of what had just occurred hit him like a cold wave. He had approached the situation thinking it would be another harmless prank, a moment to shine among his friends, maybe even to humiliate someone for laughs. Instead, he found himself stripped of his confidence in front of a crowd of witnesses. His face, once animated with a smug grin, now burned with embarrassment. The laughter and attention he had craved were gone, replaced by awe directed at the man he had underestimated. The bully's friends shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between him and the Navy SEAL, who remained composed, unflustered, and calm. They had always seen their friend as someone untouchable, a master of mockery and social manipulation, yet here he was, humbled and reduced to awkward silence. There were no punches thrown, no yelling, just a quiet, undeniable authority that left a lasting impression. For the first time, they understood that power was not measured by volume, aggression, or social dominance. The Navy SEAL, meanwhile, did something remarkable. He didn't gloat. He didn't berate the bully or make a show of superiority. Instead, he calmly cleaned himself off, dabbing the remaining milkshake from his clothes with a casual air that suggested this was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. His movements were precise, deliberate, and graceful, traits honed through years of training and discipline. This calm demeanor amplified the lesson already delivered: strength is silent, control is quiet, and respect is earned, not demanded. Onlookers watched as the bully slowly realized the magnitude of his mistake. He mumbled half-hearted apologies, but even he knew they were insufficient. Words, which he had relied on to manipulate and dominate social situations, now seemed meaningless in the face of real composure and authority. He had learned the hard way that misjudging someone's capabilities could lead to humiliation, not triumph. The incident had flipped his world upside down in just a few short minutes, teaching a lesson he would never forget. The crowd dispersed gradually, many shaking their heads in disbelief, some smiling knowingly at the display of discipline over arrogance. Parents whispered about teaching their children the importance of self-control and respect. Teenagers shared their recordings and talked excitedly, noting that this was not just a prank, it was a demonstration of real-life wisdom and power. Even casual shoppers who had wandered into the scene found themselves reflecting on the subtle yet profound dynamics they had just witnessed. And then came the aftermath in the digital world. Videos and social media clips of the event began to circulate rapidly. People everywhere marveled at the interaction. A simple milkshake spill had turned into a viral lesson in authority, restraint, and respect. Online comments praised the Navy SEAL's composure and the way he had handled the bully without violence. The story became a cautionary tale for those who underestimated others and a reminder that appearances can be deceiving. Someone who seems ordinary may possess extraordinary strength and discipline. By the end of the day, the bully had retreated, embarrassed and humbled. He had walked into the mall expecting a short-lived triumph but had instead encountered a life lesson delivered with subtle power and calm precision. The Navy SEAL walked away as if nothing had happened, leaving behind an impression far greater than the chaos of the milkshake could ever create. His quiet authority had reshaped the narrative entirely, transforming an ordinary incident into an unforgettable example of strength, discipline, and humility. The mall returned to normal activity, but everyone who had witnessed the event carried it with them. It wasn't just a funny story anymore, it was a reminder that arrogance can be fleeting, discipline is lasting, and sometimes the quietest response is the most powerful. By the time the day drew to a close, the mall had returned to its familiar rhythm, people walking, chatting, and going about their business as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Yet for those who had witnessed the incident, the memory lingered, vivid and unshakable. What began as a simple act of mischief, a bully spilling a milkshake, had transformed into a powerful lesson in humility, restraint, and the true meaning of strength. It was a story that would be retold countless times, shared across social media, and used as a reminder that appearances can be deceiving and that discipline always trumps arrogance. The bully, once so confident and untouchable, had walked into the situation expecting laughter, admiration, and control. Instead, he faced a calm, unflinching force that exposed his overconfidence and immaturity. The lesson was undeniable: strength isn't about intimidation, noise, or social dominance. It is about self-control, awareness, and the quiet confidence to handle situations with grace. The bully had learned this the hard way, and the experience would remain etched in his memory for a lifetime. The Navy SEAL, for his part, demonstrated something far more valuable than physical skill. He showed that real power lies in composure, patience, and measured response. He had turned a potentially chaotic situation into a teaching moment, proving that true authority doesn't need to be shouted, it commands attention by presence alone. Every action, from the way he assessed the situation to the calm manner in which he handled the milkshake spill, reinforced the idea that discipline and control are the foundations of strength. The onlookers, too, carried lessons away from that day. Parents silently explained to their children the importance of thinking before acting. Teenagers marveled at how someone could command respect without aggression. Strangers in the mall reflected on the fleeting nature of arrogance and the enduring impact of calm confidence. Even online, as videos of the incident spread, the story resonated widely. People shared it not just because it was entertaining, but because it illustrated a deeper truth, that anyone, regardless of size or status, can command respect through self-discipline and awareness. The milkshake, which had started the chain of events, became a symbol, not of humiliation, but of overconfidence meeting its match. The incident reminded everyone that impulsive actions, driven by ego or arrogance, often lead to consequences that are far more significant than anticipated. What seemed like a minor prank had revealed fundamental truths about human behavior, authority, and respect. As the crowd dispersed and life in the mall returned to normal, the memory of that moment remained vivid. It was a reminder that anyone can find themselves in a situation where their assumptions are challenged, and that the way one responds, calmly, deliberately, and respectfully, defines true strength. The Navy SEAL had not only defended himself, but he had also imparted a universal lesson: respect is earned, humility is powerful, and arrogance is fleeting. And so, the story of the bully who poured a milkshake on the wrong Navy SEAL became more than just a viral anecdote. It became a parable for anyone willing to observe and reflect. It proved that discipline and composure can command far more influence than aggression and chaos. It reminded the world, in the most unexpected of places, that true strength lies not in making others feel small, but in maintaining control, grace, and unwavering confidence, even in the face of provocation. The lesson was clear, unforgettable, and universal. Life often presents unexpected challenges, and it is how we respond, with calm, dignity, and awareness, that determines the respect we earn and the legacy we leave behind. The mall may have returned to normal, but the impact of that encounter would ripple far beyond its walls, leaving a lesson etched in memory for everyone who witnessed it.